Allahumma yassir wa la tu'assir. Barakallahu feekum. All right. So we're going to start a new book today, insha'Allah ta'ala. Allah enabled us. Subhanallah. He knew what we didn't know until it happened. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now let's see if he knew that we will finish, or if he knows in eternity that we will not finish. I ask Allah to enable us to finish. Ameen. Alright, so the Alfiyyat Al Iraqi in the Hadith science, being a 1,000-line poem, then you could surmise that it has higher level than what we've taken before. Which is the case. It's higher than Al-Bayquniya by a lot, and it's also higher than Nukhbatul Fikr in the amount of information that it has. Not to mention that it's in poetry form. So now, as I was reviewing to get ready for the lesson, my first intention was to read to you everything, or as much as possible, but it became clear for me that I cannot read everything. Yani, for the level we are on, for the type of audience and the platform we're going through, I don't see that we can read everything in the explanation unless we read a second time. So we're going to go through just the metin, the text, with explanation of the text. From the explanation too. Really, I want to read to you as much as possible. But there's a lot of information that I will skip as the meaning of all of what I'm saying to you. Insha'Allah ta'ala. The most important thing here is to understand the words of the text. And not everything in the explanation is needed for that. Imam As-Suyuti, rahimahullah, he has a summary of this explanation. His explanation is called Sharh Alfiyyat Al Iraqi or Sharh Alfiyyat Al Hadith. I found it one day. When I was overseas, one of my pastimes was going to book depots. And if I see anything interesting, I'll buy it. So I went to one spot and I saw the book of Al Iraqi, the book of As-Suyuti explaining the Alfiyyat Al Iraqi, and I was studying the Alfiyyat Al Iraqi at the time. So I had to get it for sure. La Buddha, that was a La Buddha right there. So I got the book of As-Suyuti and discovered that what he did was he actually summarized Al Iraqi's explanation. We're going to read the poem of Al Iraqi, and Al Iraqi explained his own poem. As-Suyuti summarized Al Iraqi's explanation. So I used As-Suyuti's book to study, actually, to study for the tests. And I passed all my tests with Suyuti's book. So let's see what we do, insha'Allah ta'ala. Maybe Allah will enable us to produce some English document here, maybe like As-Suyuti's book, or between Suyuti and Iraqi. But without further ado, let's get started. Al-Iraqi, at first, he has some introductory words. That's amongst what I'm going to skip for this time, because it's just too much effort to try to explain what he's saying there. To take away from the class time for now. If we read a second time, I'll read it, insha'Allah ta'ala. So I'm going to start with the Basmalah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. And I'm going to skip down to here, where the explainer, yani, who's the author? The author is the explainer. He says, Wabad. Also, I don't see that I really need to read the Arabic a lot. I'm not going to focus on the Arabic a lot. So maybe I will read the English and not read the Arabic. But if there's anything you want me to read, if you have a copy and you're reading along, or anything you see on the screen that I skip, feel free to ask. I am personally more interested in the information and the time constrictions. So I want to explain the metin, read the metin, take the metin, explain it, even if I don't read some of the Arabic explanation in Arabic. The book is advanced enough anyway. So he says, وَبَعْدُ, to proceed, يعني thereafter, فَعِلْمُ الْحَدِيثِ خَطِيرٌ وَقْعُهُ كَثِيرٌ نَفْعُهُ. Science of hadith is of grave importance, and its benefit is great, abundant. عليه مدار أكثر الأحكام وبه يعرف الحلال والحرام. Upon it depends most of the legal rulings, and by it the lawful and the unlawful are known. This is also part of his مقدمة, his introduction. وَلِأَهْلِهِ اصْطِلَاحٌ لَا بُدَّ لِلطَّالِبِ مِنْ فَهْمِهِ. Its practitioners, its people, the people of the science, they have terminology that is indisputable for the student, that is indispensable for the student to understand. فلهذا ندب إلى تقديم العناية بكتاب في علمه. For this reason, giving attention to a book on this science is recommended. Giving attention, yani advancing the attention. تقديم العناية, giving it, not just giving the attention, advancing this science ahead of علم الرواية, meaning you're supposed to learn hadith terminology before you learn hadith narration. This is the reverse of fiqh. Whereas you have the science of fiqh and you have the science usul al-fiqh. You need to learn fiqh first, then you learn usul al-fiqh. You won't understand if you do it the other way. But when it comes to the hadith, you learn usul al-hadith first. That's mustalah, what we are dealing with. Then you learn riwayah, narration of hadith. And then you're going to know what they're talking about, because you will have studied their terms and understood their outlines. Remember the mistake that Al-Albani made when he said about the hadith narrated by Al-Tabarani, the hadith of the blind man, that is. The one in which the Prophet ﷺ taught the blind man a dua that contains the words, Ya Muhammad. He taught the blind man to say that in his absence, in the Prophet's absence. And his Sahaba taught this after his death, this hadith. It has a chain of narration, but has two parts to the story. One part is what happened with the companion who taught a man this dua after the Prophet's death. And then the other part is how this companion learned the dua at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So it's one chain of narration, starts with the story that happened years after the Prophet died ﷺ, and then concludes with what happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So part of this hadith is mawquf. You know the hadith terms, mawquf. It's a report of companions. And part of the hadith is marfu'. It's a report raised up to the Prophet ﷺ. So what did Al-Albani say? He said, since this is all narrated under one chain of narration, one, Al-Tabarani said the hadith is sahih, he meant just the part that happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Shaykh called him out for this blunder, as if he didn't learn any mustalah, or else he would have known that the word hadith can be used for a prophetic hadith and the narration of a companion or the report of a companion that stops at a companion. You can use the word hadith for both of those. When you learn mustalah, then you're going to know what the hadith scholars are saying. Mustalah means terminology. Al Iraqi said, its practitioners have terminology that is indispensable for the student. Its practitioners have terminology that is indispensable for the student to understand. For this reason, advancing attention to a book on this science is recommended. Yani, to put it ahead of the knowledge of narration. So, Imam Al Iraqi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, I had composed a poem on it. Yani, the science of hadith. I wrote a poem. I composed it to explain their terminology. I began a commentary on it, a sharh, an explanation, expanding on it and clarifying it. Then I found it to be a large volume. Came out too big. And he only got up to the chapter of da'if. This was writing a book. It was coming out massive. He got up to the chapter of the da'if hadith. So not even deep into the book yet. He said, so I found it too lengthy and became weary of it. Yani, it was boring. It's too long. This is benefit. These scholars, they are putting these things here for benefit. I benefited from this. Then I began a commentary on it of medium size. That's this one that we're reading, and we're going to chop down at it a little bit too. It's even smaller. So his explanation that he put on his metin, his poem, is medium book. For small ones like us, this medium book is advanced. Neither excessive nor deficient. Yani, doesn't have too much and it's not lacking. Clarifying its mushkiliha, and the problematic parts. I'll put problematic instead of difficult. Problematic means some things, if you look at them some way, raises a question. If you look at them another way, raises another question, for example. So it needs to be clarified. Like, what did At-Tirmidhi mean when he said Hasan Sahih? And some other things. Ibn Hajar said, I'm the one who figured it out. How many centuries passed between At-Tirmidhi and Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani? Subhanallah. So he said, I began a commentary on it of medium size, neither excessive nor deficient, clarifying its problematic parts and opening its locked parts. It is not so lengthy as to cause boredom, nor so short that it is lacking. Along with benefits that the intelligent student cannot do without. And having unique gems that are not found collected together except here in this book. May Allah Almighty, what did he say? Ta'ala, exalted is He. Make it purely for His sake and a means to the garden of bliss. Ameen. So he starts. يقول راجي ربه المقتدر عبد الرحيم بن الحسين الأثري من بعد حمد الله ذي الآلاء على امتنان جل عن إحصائي ثم صلاة وسلام دائم على نبي الخير ذي المراحم فهذه المقاصد المهمة توضح من علم الحديث رسمه. What did he say so far? يقول راجي ربه المقتدر, says he who is hopeful of his Lord. Al-Muqtadir, his Lord who is Al-Muqtadir, all-powerful, utterly powerful. Muqtadir is more emphatic than Qadir. It's more emphatic than Qadir because it has more letters from the same root. Abdul Rahim Ibn al-Hussein al-Athari. He is Abdul Rahim, this speaker, the one, the sayer. His name is Abdul Rahim Ibn al-Hussein, and he's an Athari. Athari, it means here a hadith scholar, without going far. So it doesn't mean a Wahhabi, it means a hadith scholar, because they call themselves Atharis. Min ba'di hamdillahi dhil ala'i, after the praise of God, possessor of the endowments, the ala, alam tinanin jalla an ihsa'i, for a favor too great to be totaled, too great to be quantified, like is mentioned in the Quran. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. ثُمَّ صَلَاةٍ وَسَلَامٍ دَائِمٍ. Then may the salat and the continuous salam be عَلَى نَبِيِّ الْخَيْرِ ذِي الْمَرَاحِمِ, upon the Prophet of goodness, possessor of mercies. And the merciful Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he's merciful to his nation. So some things like this I didn't want to stop and dwell on. In the explanation, he gave information, some details. I want to get to the business here first. فهذه المقاصد المهمة توضح من علم الحديث رسمه. Now this line of poetry, its grammar can be gauged in two ways. So it could mean these are the important points. These are the important points. Yani, the complete sentence is here. فهذه المقاصد المهمة. These are the important points. Then, so that's complete sentence there. توضح, these important points clarify من علم الحديث رسمه. They clarify the outline of the science of hadith. Or it could be that فهذه المقاصد المهمة, all of that is the subject. These important points, not these are, just these. These important points توضح, clarify من علم الحديث رسمه. They clarify the outline of the science of hadith. نظمتها تبصرة للمبتدئ تذكرة للمنتهي والمسند. I composed it to give insight to the beginner, like ourselves. We're beginners here. تذكرة للمنتهي, and as a review for the advanced one, yani the one who's finished, the graduate in hadith though. والمسند, and as a review for the musnid, the transmitter. Musnid is the one who transmits hadiths, but musnid has a particular meaning. Yani, the musnid is a rank, one of its meanings, that is. I'm not saying what he means right here. He didn't say in the explanation that he means right here what I'm about to tell you. So the musnid, the author told us in his explanation, the musnid is the hadith transmitter. Okay. This word musnid also has a special usage, which is he's a hadith transmitter who's not, it can be used for a hadith transmitter who's neither a muhaddith nor a hafiz. So you have three levels of the people of hadith. The top level, the hadith headmasters, they are the principals of the field, the mujtahids of the field, the hafiz, the huffaz. They are the ones who can grade the hadiths. We'll come to talk about them. We'll see what the author has for us, inshallah. Under them are the muhaddithun, the muhaddiths, the hadith scholars. Muhaddith is hadith scholar. Hafiz, it means a preserver or a memorizer. He is a hadith scholar too. I'm going to call him the hadith headmaster, or I might even call him the principal. He's one of the principles of the hadith science. He's above scholar. He is scholar, but he's above a mere hadith scholar. He's not a mere hadith scholar. He's a hadith scholar, the hafiz, who's not a mere hadith scholar. He's higher. So the hafiz is the top level. The muhaddith is under him, and then under the muhaddith is someone who's not a hadith scholar, but he is at least qualified to transmit hadiths authentically, properly. He's counted in the chain. This one is called al-musnid. لخصت فيها ابن-الصلاح أجمعه. The author says, وزدتها علما تراه موضعه. I summarized in it, in this poem of mine, Ibnus-SalaH entirely, and I added to it. I added to what Ibnus-SalaH documented, knowledge that you shall see is appropriate. You will find it in its place. That's what he said. Tarahu mawdi'ah. You will find it in its place. You will find it placed properly. I have added to what Ibnus-SalaH contributed, and you shall find it. You shall find what I added in its proper place. You will find it appropriate. Who's Ibnus-SalaH? Ibnus-SalaH is the sheikh of the scholars of hadith, the sheikh of the field of mustalah in particular. He's the sheikh of the scholars of usulul hadith. Mustalah hadith terminology is usulul hadith. He wrote the fundamentals that all the scholars afterwards go back to, either as a supporter or as a critic. But even if someone is a critic of Ibnus-SalaH, still goes back to Ibnus-SalaH though. So he's the man. May Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him, and he is the one whose body was discovered intact 800 years later. So he was amongst the awliya. This is a karamah. Sometimes Allah makes the awliya not decay in their graves. Then, I ran out of translation for the metin. It's okay, I'll translate myself. فحيث جاء الفعل والضمير لواحد ومن له مستور كقال أو أطلقت لفظ الشيخ ما أريد إلا ابن-الصلاح مبهما. He says, and so, wherever a verb came and the pronoun for one, a singular pronoun, The verb for single doer. Whenever a verb for a single doer came, however, that doer is not named. Kakala, like if it says somewhere in the poem, he said, and it doesn't say who's he. Or wherever I use the open wording of the Shaykh. Al Iraqi says, ما أريد إلا ابن-الصلاح مبهما. I don't mean anything or anyone but Ibnus-SalaH, but vaguely. I'm just mentioning him vaguely. He is the one meant. So he's telling you how the poem works. And that's something that the scholars do also. They tell you how their book works. If they have symbols in there, like abbreviations, they'll tell you what the abbreviations mean. Like here, this is abbreviation. Here, he's telling you. If you see the verb for a single one, like Qala, he said, and doesn't say who's he anywhere near the talk, this means Ibnus-SalaH. Or if it says somewhere in my book, the Shaykh, this means Ibnus-SalaH. So you'll find that in many books. And Nawawi, he will be telling you, when I say this, I mean this. When I say this, I mean this. And others, many. That's known thing they do. And it's even in this book, but far from where we are now. So I'll tell you now. These scholars, they suggest for you student, you note-taking student, you record-keeping student, they suggest for you to make a key for your own notes, because probably you have a system also. If you are someone who takes notes, you have a system for yourself. They said make a key for your own notes, because maybe you'll come back to your book in the future and find your book and not know what your symbols mean. Or maybe someone else will come in the future and find your book and not know what the symbols mean. So put a key explaining the meaning of your symbols and your abbreviations, etc. وَإِنْ يَكُنْ لِاثْنَيْنِ نَحْوُ الْتَزَمَ فَمُسْلِمٌ مَعَ الْبُخَارِيِّ هُمَا فمسلم مع البخاري هما وإن يكن لاثنين نحو التزما فمسلم مع البخاري هما okay, so and if it were for two, the verb, if you found a verb for two, like iltazama, those two adhered to such and such, then what that means, he tells you, فَمُسْلِمٌ مَعَ الْبُخَارِيِّ هُمَا. That's Muslim with Al-Bukhari, those two are. Muslim with Bukhari, those two are. Those two that the pronoun refers to. So if I say a verb that's for one person, then that's for Ibnus-SalaH. And if I say a verb that's for two people, that's for Al-Bukhari and Muslim. And if I say the Shaykh, that's Ibnus-SalaH. والله أرجو في أموري كلها معتصما في صعبها وسهلها. Yani he says, and of Allah I am hopeful in all of my affairs. Of Allah I am hopeful in my affairs entirely, or all of them. معتصما, I am hopeful of Allah Ta'ala. Mu'tasiman, I'm not sure how to explain Mu'tasiman. He actually doesn't explain it here. In the difficult matters, and my difficult matters, and in my easy matters. I am hopeful of Allah Ta'ala in all of my matters, the difficult ones and the easy ones. Also, there's another explanation for this poem by As-Sakhawi. Imam As-Sakhawi, he's the student of Ibn Hajar Al Asqalani. Ibn Hajar Al Asqalani is a student of this Iraqi. So Ibn Hajar Al Asqalani, he took the Alfiyyat of Al Iraqi from Al Iraqi and he passed it on to As-Sakhawi, and As-Sakhawi did an explanation for it. His explanation is massive, 3 volumes. So if someone wanted to study this book so well, you could take Suyuti's book. That's the smallest one. Then Al-Iraqi's own explanation, that's the medium one. Then As-Sakhawi's explanation, that's the bigger one. Then, mashallah, you're going to be so good in Alfiyyah of Al-Iraqi. Wallahu alam. So that's his introduction. At least we finished the introduction. So I'm going to do something like that for the whole thing. Wallahu alam. Do you have any question I can answer for you?